conflicts in our country.
The Muslim world has had 1,000 9/11s. And if you sit here and go, look, just imagine, try to imagine, be really genuine here, okay? Because we're going to see we're so much better than the Islamic world. And you know what? I generally do think we are. But
Agreed.
Even us, who's so much better than them, imagine, not one 9/11, but 1,000 9/11s happened here. What would that look like? And then let's say after 1,000 9/11s happened here, let's say whoever, Iran did it. And then Iran invades and they overthrow our government. And they prop up their own government. And now they rule us. What do you think the toughest right-wing militia members in America would be doing? They'd be throwing Molotov cocktails through their government building. They'd be running up, suicide bombing themselves. And I bet they'd yell something about Jesus before they did it too. Because they'd probably start clinging to their religion. So I'm just saying that, like, if we're unwilling in this debate, in this divide, to try, make a real effort to put ourselves in their shoes and go, what would we do in that situation? If you imagine, listen, this is 1948 is not that long ago, okay? It's our grandpas.
We're talking about 1,400 years here.
No,
We're not talking about 1948. We're talking about 1,400 years of this savagery and
you
barbarism.
are, but I'm talking about something else. So anyways, what I'm saying is 1948 was not that long ago, okay? The people, my grandfather
75 years ago.
in World War II, okay? Like he was, he remembers this very vividly, okay? Those people were kicked out of their homes. This was like, look, I'll say this from the Jewish perspective, okay? And there's a big difference. Now, you may not have this as much as I do, but in general, I would say, for Jews, this is true, that our parents' generation are way more connected to like a serious form of anti-Semitism than the current Jewish generation is today. Like there's something like, my mother was the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. It's a little bit different than being the grandson of a Holocaust survivor.
My grandfather was arrested by Nazis when he was a medical school student. And,
right.
And the Jewish students were expelled from medical school. And his medical diploma has a swastika on it.
Yes, so just making the point that, you're right, this is my family's history too, and most Jewish people's family's history, okay? And they were like, if you read the writing of the early Zionists, okay, which is like the late 1800s, it's all a reaction against the pogroms, which are, I mean, you ever read about like pogroms in Eastern Europe? I mean, it's just like the most horrific thing.
The Jewish ghetto.
Well, they're happening all over again right now.
Well, okay, anyway. It's actually more disturbing than reading about the Holocaust. Even though the Holocaust was on like such a larger number, it's something about it, like it's more systematized. And so it almost like removes you from but you read about the pogroms were just basically like your neighbors all decided they were gonna come in and rip your children apart and rape your wife in front of you and make you watch and then beat you to death. And this happened over and over and over again.
This was going on where exactly?
In Eastern Europe, most of the old Russian Empire, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, all these areas.
And it's happening now,
horrific.
too.
And this
is
was it's not happening now.
No,
like
it actually is, though. Did you see
not like it was happening
no, but did you see the videos? No, I'm not. The Chechens, they literally stormed the airport, okay, in one of the
Who did they catch?
one of the Russian territories. And what you had is all these Muslim men. There were tons of videos of this. I'm surprised you didn't see it. And you had like thousands, okay?
Yeah,
thousands of Muslim men stormed the airport. They took over airport security.
They thought an Israeli flight was coming in. They were wrong. It wasn't.
And they were going to kill every single person on that plane. They said, we're going to kill them.
Okay, but anyway, Laura, you're just interrupting.
That is.
Well, no, it's not, because it didn't end up happening. But anyway, it's not. It's just distracting.
They would have killed them.
Quite possibly. But anyway, this all ties in actually to my.
All they do is derail. Like he was on a roll, and they had to break that up with some story about some shit that didn't happen.
Yeah, but anyway, so the response, that Zionism was a response to that. And what's really interesting is if you read the early Zionists, they didn't talk that much about the Arabs. And first off, none of them had ever been to Palestine. They didn't really know, but they actually talked, when they did mention the Arabs, they talked about them in kind of friendly terms because they liked the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was kind of cool. They let Jews work. They let them practice their religion as they wanted to. They were certainly much better than the Russian Empire was to them. And so it was almost like not like an afterthought, but it was like, look, we're reacting to that. And so we're going here. And whatever has to happen to the people who are happening, we need our own state because we can't live like this anymore, which is a reasonable conclusion, at least needing your own state from that. And then, of course, after the Holocaust, it was like, game over. We're doing whatever we have to do this. I'm just making the point that, look, people react to this level of violence. And if you want to understand what's going on in the world, if you want to understand what motivated Osama bin Laden to hit us on 9/11, if you want to understand what motivates Hamas to hit Israel, you got to look at this or you're never going to get it. And this is the final point I'll make, because when you talk about these pogroms are happening all over the world, look, the point of 9/11, Osama bin Laden's goal, which he explicitly wrote about, was what? It wasn't just to kill some Americans in the Twin Towers. It wasn't just that he thought if we took down the towers, that would destroy the United States of America. His expressed goal was to get us to invade Afghanistan. He was trying to recreate what we trained him to do in 1979 to the Soviet Union, to lure us into Afghanistan, to bankrupt us. And look at this. And then George W. Bush said, I'll do you one better, Osama. I'll invade Iraq also.
Yeah.
And look at us. Look,
Two
we're
for the price of one.
20 years later, and I'm not saying our country hasn't exactly collapsed, but I bet all three of us and everyone in this room and everyone watching here would agree. Man, our country sure is in trouble.
Well, you're also kind of forgetting the part where
I want you to picture how much better our lives would be if we didn't have to spend those billions to trillions, if you count them all together, trillions of dollars in the Middle East, and we just took that money and put it into education. We might be able to have kids who could actually grow up and be able to vote like they know something instead of just watching whatever's on TV and voting for whoever tells them to. They tell them to. That's our life has gone down so bad from where it could be just because of all these wars we had to spend so much of our money on that really didn't do shit for us. It did nothing but benefit Israel. Nothing.
where he wrote about, Islamic global domination.
Yes, he was an Islamist. Yes. No,
I know, you conveniently
no.
leave that part out.
No,
though.
I'm not leaving anything out. I'm just focusing on something else that really matters. Obviously, he was an Islamist. Like, what is that? Yes, of course. Osama bin Laden was a radical Islamist, fundamentalist. The point is that there was a strategy here, okay? And with this Hamas attack, there's also a strategy. And you know what the strategy of this was? This wasn't just a bunch of barbarians. This was, they were barbarians, but this was a very sophisticated attack from land, air, and sea, right? All coordinated against the fortress of the world, and they pulled it off. And what was the point of this attack?
They want us to go to war with Iran.
To get Israel to do exactly what they're doing right now and turn the whole world opinion against them, which is exactly what's going on. You're seeing marches in the hundreds of thousands across America, North America, Europe, the entire Muslim world. Listen, even from the most pro-Israel point of view, I hope everyone here recognizes the Israel's existence is under more threat right now than it has ever been in my lifetime. I'm 40. There is a real threat right now that other Arab countries are going to get involved. This is something that hasn't happened since the 60s and 70s. There's a real chance of it right now because 100% of their populations are against this. And as much as, by the way, I might disagree a lot with what's being said at some of these anti-Israel protests as well. I'm sure all of us don't like some of the rhetoric, but it would behoove Israelis, and it would behoove people who are pro-Israel to consider the possibility that maybe your rhetoric is actually somewhat right. I see all of these people who support Israel, and they constantly say to me, they go, look, Israel is this tiny little dot in a sea of Muslims. And these people would tear us all limb from limb if they had the shot at that. And also, by the way, Europe and America, there is a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism that is right under the surface. And if you just scratch it, it's all going to pop up. And what they're all saying is over the last few weeks, we're seeing it. See? Proof. Okay, so let's just take for granted. I don't necessarily agree with all of that, but let's just say that's all true.
That's only true if you allow everything to be anti-Semitic. If you allow saying, I don't want to finance another country, they call you an anti-Semite. That's the only way that they can make that make sense.
Then to quote Walter White, maybe Israelis' best course of action is to tread lightly here and consider the fact that the world is sending you a message saying, you may be okay with killing tens of thousands of Palestinian babies. They are not going to take this.
The world is not sending a message, okay? I talked about
Your response to him.
And I highlighted this, okay?
And then, by the way, we're going to go right to the Twitter questions, X questions, and we'll take some.
We can check the polls now and see where the world sits on Israel. I'm pretty sure the side that I'm on is the side that pretty much agrees. Not that I'm saying that means you're right, but I am saying that the world is seeing it.
The world is not responding to this, okay? The Muslim nations obviously granted, okay, when you have majority Muslim nations, and these are Muslims, they believe in the word of the Quran, okay, they are Jew haters, okay, if they want to call themselves devout Muslims, to be a devout Muslim is to be a Jew hater, okay? Some people may not want to hear that, but that's the truth. If you consider yourself to be a devout Muslim, you are a Jew hater, because the Quran, there are actually more calls for the killing of Jews in the Quran than Hitler's Mein Kampf. Did you know that?
No, I've never read either of those books.
Yeah, but there's more. There's actually there's
I'll
more
lend you my
calls.
copy.
There's more calls for the killing of Jews in the Quran than Hitler's Mein Kampf. And it's important, right? Because would you allow for a member of Congress to take their oath of office on Hitler's Mein Kampf?
Obviously not.
So why is it acceptable for a member of Congress to take their oath of office on the Quran?
Because it's totally different.
No, I don't think it is, right? And this is why you have now Rashida Tlaib being censured, of course. And just today, actually, before coming on to this debate, it was uncovered that she's been a member of a pro-Hamas group where they glorify Hamas martyrs, okay, for the last 6 years, which, is obviously including the time that she's been serving in Congress. We should not surrender. And so the fact
Are you saying that a Muslim should not be able to serve in the U.S. Congress?
I'm saying that it should be illegal to take your oath of office on the Quran. I think that it should be illegal.
I almost agree with her. Not like you seem, though. I think anyone that has an alliance or an allegiance to a different country or a different whatever, something somewhere else, then you shouldn't be allowed to serve in our Congress. And that would include all the fucking Zionists in the picture right behind me.
Took their oath on the Bible, that would be
They
okay.
should take your oath on the Constitution.
But so why would that be? Could they still be a Muslim? This is the
But-
dumbest, most superficial
It's
thing.
not, it's
So
not.
if they just don't
It's
take the
not.
oath, then they won't hate Jews anymore or something?
No, but I'm trying to make the point that we shouldn't have any jihadists in Congress because their views and what they believe in is completely incompatible
But
with
that's all
Western
Muslims, right?
civilization. Well, if it's
That's what
if
you just said.
Yeah, look. And
So why would you run away from Adam's point?
I'm
Should
not
Muslims be
running
allowed
away.
to serve it? No,
Well,
you just don't want to say it.
I'm not going to say that we should ban all Muslims from serving in Congress, but
But you just said all Muslims hate Jews.
if you were a devout Muslim.
Okay, so should all devout Muslims be banned from serving in Congress?
Well, if I could have my way, I would probably say yes.
Okay, there.
I would
Well,
say yes.
at least you didn't dodge the question.
I'm not even going to
All right.
dodge the
First
question. I
one.
would just say yes.
Finally then.
Because
All
I
right.
don't want anti-Semites having access to classified information, and I don't want anti-Semites
So that's
serving
the
in positions
standard.
of
You
power.
can't hate Jews.
That's why the
and
Congress
be
looks
in
like
Congress.
this.
You can't be a Hamas supporter. You can't
you
openly
just said
support Islamic
anti-Semites.
terrorism.
Okay.
No, I didn't say anti-Semites. I don't have
what
a
you just
problem
said.
necessarily with the viewpoints, right? I have thick skin. I can get over some of the things that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar have said about Jewish people. But what I don't like is their open association with groups like ISIS and the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, which have all been documented and proven. Okay,
Listen,
and it is true.
Barack
they
Obama
refuse.
funded ISIS.
I'm not talking about
and
Barack.
John
I'm talking
McCain
about these
supported
elected
him doing
officials. Talk
what
about
actually matters.
anti-Semitism. This is why
You're talking because
you have January 6th political protesters right now who are rotting away in jail cells because they went inside the Capitol. But it's okay for Rashida Tlaib because she wants to cry Islamophobia and wants to pretend that she's a victim because she's a Palestinian, she's a Muslim, and we can have a full-blown Hamas surrection. This is unacceptable. So when you talk about scratching the surface, no, politicians on both sides of the
That's what it was. This is just like the liberals who say that it's not enough to just not be a racist. You have to be anti-racist, right? You have to actually go after the people who you think are racist or whatever. That's very similar to what they're saying. Like you just have to, you can't be somebody who hates the Jews and still get into Congress. You're not allowed to think that. That's wrong think, right? Just like in 1984. You can't think things even.
aisle, Republican and Democrat, have given it a pass. You didn't need to scratch the surface. These people were always Jew haters from the beginning. I exposed it 6 years ago and paid the price of being debanked. I was demonetized.
And she decides who's a Jew hater and who's not, right? Saying you don't want to support Israel, Jew hater. That's in their mind. That's how they've already got these lines drawn. So if you don't go with them on what they want to spend your money on, you're an anti-Semite, and you can't serve Congress no more. You can't do all these things because you just have to think what they want you to think. Mind control.
I was shut down on every single social media platform. I was banned from food delivery apps for trying to blow the whistle and prevent something like this from happening 6 years ago.
That sucks that you got kicked off social
but
media
I'm
sites,
trying
but that
to
has
say
nothing
we
to do with the point I was making.
It does have a point because you want to scratch the scratch.
What happened to Nick Fuentes? They took away his ability to have a bank. because he was anti-Semitic, so they had to take away his banking ability. Dude can't even cash a check.
The surface
Listen,
of
you're
it.
talking
These are
about-
issues that
look,
have
the
existed.
squad-
They're ideological issues.
Well, he's
Lauren,
basically
the
saying
squad
that tread
sucks.
lightly,
The
and you're
squad
saying double
sucks.
down.
They're
I
a
think
bunch of
that's the crux
idiots.
of it. Yeah.
The squad sucks. They're a bunch of idiots. They're also pretty irrelevant. They're like the four members of the Democratic
They're not
Party
irrelevant.
that never
They're literally
really get
driving
Okay,
policy
they're-
and shaping
no, they're
Joe Biden's.
not. Oh my
Joe
God,
Biden's
it's such
agenda.
nonsense.
I wish-
Dick Cheney
Yeah.
is who drives policy, not Rashida
And the
Tlaib.
path-
and the
but
policy
my
AOC
point-
does have her finger on the pulse
My-
of a lot of the
Well,
woke
yeah,
left.
she's
So, I mean,
got
it's
a
not like
popular
I
TikTok channel,
will
but I'm
say
talking
my
about the
point-
actual policy that gets through.
We need to
the
condemn the
policy has
Democrats'
been
platforming of
funding
these things.
Israel. Who's the country who we've with the exception of Ukraine, just for the last year and a half? Who's the country who we've given the most foreign aid to?
What policy are they even talking about? AOC came out with the Green New Deal and everybody laughed at it and it didn't do shit. What policies have they gotten enacted? Please tell me.
Right,
It's
and
Israel.
speaking
by
of Ukraine,
far. Who's next?
As we send billions of dollars to Israel every year. Like, who's getting shit done? I don't think it's AOC.
Next after that? Oh, the countries that we pay off to be friends with Israel.
speaking of
this
Ukraine,
idea that the government
Hamas
is running.
terrorists, the Hamas terrorists,
And you
were
can't
showing,
respond to that either,
No,
I'm
but
sure,
speaking
but-
of Ukraine, I'm opposed to all money going to Ukraine. I don't know if you saw
But
these
that's not
videos
the
as
point
well.
of what I was saying. You're completely dodging the point here.
Yep.
You're trying to paint this picture that the U.S. Federal government is run by these people who hate Israel, when meanwhile, Israel is the country who's received more foreign aid than any other country.
Our
and the
country
other
right
ones,
now is currently run by a bunch of Jew haters. I will say that.
and they still give Israel
I
more
will
foreign
say
aid than
that
everyone. What a weird coincidence.
Israel, you said, and I agree with you in that I've never seen
Hate me all you like. Send the checks this way, though.
such a threat to the existence of Israel in my life. I'm 30 years old. You're 40 or 10 years older than me, of course. But it's alarming. But it's not just alarming. I live in America. I'm concerned about America first. But there's 15 million Jews left on this planet, okay? And there's 2 billion Muslims. And with the amount of Jew hatred that's taking place and the fact that we can't even get every single member of Congress to agree to censure a member of Congress who supports Hamas, which I just read their charter says they want to kill Jews and they want Israel to completely be obliterated. What does that mean for the global population of
do you think
Jewry?
America
You're talking about
We have-
Rashida Tlaib, who was censured by 100%
Yes,
of Republicans,
right.
but only
Like, what-
20% of
Hasn't-
Democrats.
but only
Okay, fine,
20%
but they
of
didn't vote to
Democrats.
censure her.
No, but
What's
you're
the
making,
policy?
But you're
But
making
listen,
light
guys,
of this.
why
It's
are you-
serious.
I'm not making
Listen,
light of
hold on,
anything.
pause.
2 billion
We wanna
Muslims